All right, I guess I'll start. So I don't have much of a plan going into this, and this video, if you're watching, is going to be probably pretty bad. Like, I don't mean, I'll do my best and everything like that, but I have not practiced even speaking into videos like this in the first place. I'm going to do this probably all in one take without doing any kind of editing or fixing if I speak, like, get tongue-tied or anything like that, so enjoy. The purpose of all of this is just to force myself to practice doing stuff, because I found that it's one thing to, like, for example, I'm learning the Rust programming language, and it's one thing to go through like the video courses that teach it, and you're like, wow, this is fun, I'm learning it. But then if you don't actually do something with it, you're not really keeping what you're learning. So this is my way of forcing myself to do a few things at the same time. One of them being actually do some programming in Rust, so I actually like remember. You're going to see me try to remember stuff that I just learned. I'm only new at it. And then another thing is that if I keep pumping out videos like this, eventually I'll become good at it, maybe, or I'll find out that I'm so bad at it that I'll just stop again. But the intention behind all this is essentially to pick an arbitrary project, something to help me practice, because I've been programming for a very long time, but in a kind of a weird, limited way that didn't involve doing a lot of what typical programmers would work with. So I'm trying to make that a thing of the past by making Tic Tac Toe and just a bunch of dumb things. So here goes. So my intention is I'm going to set a timer for 30 minutes, and I'm going to attempt to make a Tic Tac Toe game in the console using Rust, which I have only just begun learning. I've only just begun seeing the concepts it uses of like ownership, borrowing, lifetimes, and things like that. So I'm going to stumble through this very badly, and I'm going to have the compiler and the error messages and things like that tell me, you know, what's wrong with what I'm trying to do. And what inspired me to do this was I tried doing a coding challenge one time where they said, can you make a small similar type of app in like a fixed amount of time, like 30 minutes. And I was amazed at the fact that doing that made me actually think faster and work faster in a way that I never really had to do before. When you don't have a clock running like that, you just like, oh, let me take the time to do this, and you think for a while, you look at what you're doing, and having a timer on it it made me better. It made me like actually perform better. So I think that this is a really good exercise for myself. And now that you get the point of what's going on here, you get to, if you're still watching, you get to watch me do that, which I promise won't be that entertaining or even informative or useful. But if there's anybody that's out there, you're also welcome to give any comments or advice about like things I could do better, or just anything. Well, nice things are preferred instead of saying, you know, not nice things, but whatever. I'll see how it goes. So I hope you enjoyed that preamble, whatever that word is. Preamble the right word for that? Now I'm going to nervously start my 30-minute timer, and you're about to find out that I don't know exactly what I'm doing, but that's kind of the point. The whole point of what I'm doing now is to not have a plan and not have myself prepared to start, and I want to see how quickly I can pull something together. I don't even know if I'll get halfway through, but that's, again, the point of this exercise. So have fun watching me mess around. Timer's gone. Timer's going, I should say. Okay, I am drawing a blank, so the first thing I guess I'll do is cargo new, I think, and I'm going to call this, that's the same thing. Just to get things going, I'm going to call it the same folder name. What I'm doing is calling things with I think in Rust you can't call a project with like a digit in the first character, so I put a P there, so I can still use numbers as my leading like prefix for the names of everything I'm doing here. So I'm going to keep the same. There we go. Did that work? Hey, it worked. Okay. So now there's this. Target is already being ignored, so that's fine. Now what in the world am I supposed to do next? I'm going to go into this and get rid of that. Well, I don't want to throw away all the hard work that Cargo did for me, so I'll keep that. And I'll plan out my thoughts a little bit here. I'm not going to finish this in 30 minutes, I can tell you that much. You may want to play this at like 2 times speed. I'm not going to, you don't even have to watch this. You can go do something more important. But anyway, here's me doing my practice work. So, make Tic Tac Toe. in the console. I'm going to call it an array like because I don't know if I'm going to use an array or like a vector or something at this point. It's a good thing I'm doing this practice because I got to get better than this, that's for dang sure. Sorry for saying dang. Now what? I'm drawing a blank because I'm doing this instead of this video thing is new to me, so I'm surprisingly a little bit nervous with it, even though I'm getting used to it. So I want to represent it with the 3x3 array-like structure. I want it to be seen, instead of doing 3 rows with a bunch of columns, I want to be seeing it as 3 columns with rows. As I'm not sure why. Oh, the reason why I want to do that is so that if you look at it in the sense of columns, rows in the coordinate system, it'll be more like doing X and Y coordinates, which is a bit more familiar with like 2D gaming and things like that. I should probably just start doing things. And oh, by the way, I don't know how to do most of the things, like even taking user input in the console, because I've only just begun learning how Rust works. So I'm going to be prompting GitHub Copilot to explain things to me, which I don't think will show up on the screen. But I mean, it's not like this video was promising to be really good. It's just me doing stuff. It's interesting how much I realize I don't know. If this was like Python or something, I'd be able to just start typing stuff. But this, I have to think about it like a brand new paradigm. I'll just do a giant thing in here for now. Does this work? That board. That's interesting. Yeah, when you're watching someone do like a video course on how to do this stuff, you remember how to declare variables, but right, or bindings, I guess they call them here. But right now, I'm like, how do you do that again? I think I do it like this. So I'm going to use a vector. I mean, I could just declare the array completely from the start, but I'm going to do this macro here. And then that's interesting. I could use a struct for this, I guess. I'm going to get fancy and try that. I'm going to go with string, even though I could use the, do people call that a char or a char? Oh, I'm going to do something else fancy. I'm practicing things. I don't have to do this, but how do you do that again? I think you do like that. And now there's these implicit return statements in Rust. So I may as well act like I'm teaching people things too. So what I'm doing is in Rust, you have these things called structs, which are a little bit like classes in other languages. Here, you define the structure of the struct and the functionality of it in 2 separate blocks. So the struct is where you just have the data fields, and this is called a implementation block or something, like an inherent implementation block. And in that, you put your methods and everything for it. So this method is going to be, what do they call that, an associative associated function because it's like a static function, I guess you'd call it. It's run off of the actual structure itself, but not an instance, to try to repeat what I think I learned about these things. So all I really need to do here is return a structure. So there's these implied return statements where if I just do something like that. Okay, so what's going on is you don't put a semicolon on the end of it. The last expression that's evaluated in any function will be considered the return value. So what will happen is when main runs, it will call this game new function, and then game will contain this struct object, which is kind of like a key value pair. You could think of it where board is the key and then an empty vector is its value. I'm going to now use an example of what do they call them? Just a method, I guess. So initialize needs a reference to itself, and literally a reference to itself. So this ampersand has to be in here for it to indicate that this is a reference to the thing. I hope that was super clear. What I'm going to want this thing to do here is to give itself the columns and rows. So what would I do here? Some kind of a for loop. This is going to be really crudely done, I think, but anyway, for yeah, this is going to be crudely done. What did I do? Why doesn't it do that? That's why. What? Here's my first thing I'm not quite sure about. So I want this thing to be a vector that contains, maybe this is what I'll have to do. Now here's the stuff. So the error messages in Rust are incredibly helpful. So what's going on is I'm getting an error that self.board is considered not mutable, and that's because when I defined this game down here, I had to make it, well, that's part of what's going on. I also have to write the mute thing there. So that made that go away. I have a feeling that if I run game.initialize, now I'll see that there's a problem with that because that's not mutable. To make that go away, I have to do that. Well, we're really getting somewhere with this. I'm going to do this thing here. So I want to be able to print at least what's going on with my data structure here. So there's these attributes or something you might call it, where if you derive debug. So what's happening here is this statement here is going to cause the compiler to fill in an implementation into the struct where it becomes something that can be printed in a debug way, like a debugger kind of formatting, which means that I can go down here now and print line. There. Do this. No. Okay, so the colon, the pound sign or hashtag or whatever you want to call that, and then the question mark. So the colon refers to the fact that this string, these curly braces, are going to be showing some kind of formatted text. The I believe this symbol, the pound or the hashtag, whatever you want to call it, indicates that it should be pretty printed, and the question mark is debug formatting. So now I can do this, and if I what? Oh. Gotcha. Okay, so there's that. It shows that there's a game board. Now the thing is, the way it's going to visually represent it is really going to be like 3 rows of. Okay, I'll probably just stick with that too then. So what I'd like to do though is get these to have 3 spaces in them. So I can probably do that while I'm initializing it, rather than doing another loop that goes over those things and pushes things into them. I think I'm going to try. Wow, I'm almost halfway through my half hour here. Don't worry, this is going great. Okay. I'm like drawing blanks again because I'm thinking too much about the timing and stuff like that. So I'm going to be doing some kind of a thing where I want to get a reference to this thing, and then while I'm in this loop, I'd like to push 3 spaces into it. So I'm just wondering if I'll see what I get. That mutable row equals this. Wait. What happens if I do that, actually? That's just some return value. I see what I'm doing. Okay. So I'm going to initialize a row as an empty vector. And then I guess I want to push like 3 spaces into it or something like that. Do I really? I'm doing these 1 index counts because I'm not using them as coordinate references or anything like that. I'm just using it for the sake of saying, 1, 2, 3 things. So I'm going to row dot push and then do that, I guess. So here's a thing about Rust. There's somehow a difference between what you might think of as a string literal like this. It's not being seen as one. It sees it as a string slice or some other kind of reference type thing. So what I need to do is actually go string from. And now it likes it. That's an actual string. So the game's pretty much finished, I would say. Look at its, okay, so there's that. What happens if I take off that? I'm going to need to print it in a more nice way than that. I may as well take care of that now. This printing board isn't going to need to modify anything as far as I know, so it just needs a what do you call it, immutable reference to itself. This should... Let's see what we get. Of course not. What's wrong? Okay, what? Now I'm going to run into problems. I'm almost tempted to have like something like GitHub Copilot explain this to me because I'm not quick. Like, you can tell that I'm doing something wrong, clearly. So it's iterating. It's supposed to be iterating over every. Oh, I see. I'm gonna do this. What do we have here? Doesn't implement display. Does it implement that? Oh, and there's something about the data being moved here, so I've got to put a reference to it here. Oh, I guess I got what I wanted, kind of. You can tell that's a Tic Tac Toe board. I mean, it doesn't look anything like one, but it's at least in the shape of one now, which is cool because I'm close to 18 minutes into this already. Wow, I'm not going to finish it. But that's, again, the point of this whole thing is to make me do stuff. Because you can tell that, like, if this is how I have to deal with this stuff, then I need to practice it more. This is also really to help me. What I'm really doing here is trying to remind myself how to deal with, like, the things about Rust that I'm new to, like simply declaring, like, a vector macro here, or, these things like mutable references and all that kind of stuff. So I'm really proud of myself. I've got a whole thing going here. I've got a game board that can initialize itself, can print itself, and then what in the world would I do now? I'm going to try going real out there and maybe make it so I can, like, take a user input and place, like, a X or an O or whatever like that. So I'm going to, just for the convenience of things, make the player be the X and the computer player, if I get to that, will have O's or something like that. I'm going to go have a little conversation with GitHub Copilot, because I simply haven't seen how to do console input or anything like that yet with this, so I'm wondering, how can I get user input in Rust, in a Rust console app? So I need to use a standard library, has an I/O thing. Fortunately, GitHub Copilot, like, looks at the stuff you have in your editor, and it gives you an answer that's sort of in context of what you've got. So it's showing me an example. I'll just paste it in here so you can see, because I don't think that you can see what I've got. So Copilot showed me this, which has this using standard I/O. I don't know how you'd really say it out loud. And then it has basically the same code that I've already written, and then it essentially wrote out for me how to use the I/O standard in read line, and then you have to expect. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on here I've never seen before. That's interesting. That it's using a let statement twice here. I'm going to try to break this apart and not just use what it gave me, but I want to. Rather than pasting what it told me, I like typing it myself, so it makes me, feel that I did it or something. It builds more muscle memory or something, I believe. Okay, so what's it got here? It's using, first of all, it's making a mutable string to hold it, which I'm fine with. Then it is, it's interesting that you have to do string new instead of just, again, in a lot of languages, you can just do two quotation marks. So what's it doing? We have a string new. What? So what's it doing here? So it's using IOs, and it has something called the standard in, or something like that. Has a read line, which is what I want. Okay, what's going on here? So you're giving it a string, I guess. But it has to be, looks like a mutable reference to it. And then this expect thing, I don't know what's going on with that. Returns the contained OK value consuming the self value. Is discouraged to do this. Instead, refer to pattern matching and handle the error. Wow, I'm learning as I go. Yeah, I've never seen this stuff before, so it's like a little different than just using, Python's input, function that you don't have to do this other stuff with. What happens if I just do that? It's doing fancy things like trimming the input and things like that, but I'm not going to do that right now. Okay, so what? This thing thinks I don't have. Oh, that's why. What is wrong? What? That must have been added when I did something. I accidentally typed whatever that was using tab autocompletion, and it seems to have put in a use statement that I didn't need. So I was expecting to have it prompt me for player input, and it didn't. And I don't see why. It's like giving me the chance to... Whoa, that's funny. It showed that after. Absolutely not what I thought would happen. Okay, when I use print, it didn't show the question before the input, but when I use print line, it does show the question before the input. So it's at least getting something. I've really learned something today. I have 4 minutes and about 4.5 minutes left to get this done. I'm not going to. What I'll do is once my timer hits 30 minutes, I'll be like, oh, here's how far I got. But then I'm actually having so much fun, I might try to keep going a little more and do some bonus round or something like that. So I was just sitting here and daydreaming is exactly the best way to go about handling the next things I'm doing. Okay, so I'm going to try to take this input and then parse it into 2 variables using something like a comma delimiting, comma as a delimiter. So I would use like, string.split or something like that, but I don't know if there's an equivalent to that, so I know who to talk to about it. I'm going over to my Copilot window. How in Rust can I split a string by a comma delimiter, like string.split? So it's saying I can use it has a dot split as well, but then there's a bit of mapping and stuff going on here. I will copy this just because it's a lot of stuff in one line. So it's doing this. It's defining a vector of what I want to call string references or string slices. Sorry for coughing a whole bunch of times here. And it's not really coughing, but anyway, sorry. So it's going to split my input here by the comma, and then it's using this sort of like mapping function, which is familiar with, it's similar to what I see in JavaScript. So it's taking the individual elements of input. Okay, so it's splitting the string by commas, and then you're getting some kind of a collection out of it, and then it's mapping every one of those single things into this S variable, you can call it, and then it's taking it, it's trimming it for some reason, it just really wants to. It's not a bad idea, and then it's going to collect it, which I believe turns whatever the iterator, as they call it, into a collection, which I'm assuming is going to be predicted by the compiler to turn it into what it was told to make, which is a vector of strings. So I should be able to do something like this. Okay, it knows that. There's an error because I didn't put a comma. Okay, so I do have a way of getting to, I'm going to call it coordinates instead of parts, so Control D, Control D, Control D. I could have just done search and replace. There we go. I'm going to make things easier on me. This is unconventional naming structure, I think. Oh, I'm going to do it like this. Well, that's not it. How do you get that? Oh, Control Alt. There, so I'm going to call it chords RC, so it reminds me that this is in rows and columns, so I don't get confused about trying to find, it's not like XY as you might normally see it. It's going to be more like a YX type pattern. Okay, so now I have the row and the column that, is there some way that I can just call them row? I will do this for now and see what I get. I have about 25 seconds left, which is exciting. So it's about how far I got with this. So I have something that can take the input in a very fragile way and tell you what it was. I won't do it in the next 16 seconds, but I would really feel good if I could just place a letter X somewhere in here. So how would I do that? I'm going to clear my head. I'm going to let the timer run out. 4, 3, 2, 1. Over. Okay, so now that we're off the clock and I can finally relax, I'm going to finish up a couple of things, but this is officially how far I got. I hope everyone really had a fun time watching me make this. And I am just not about to stop now because why would I? I'm so close, as you can tell. I don't even know. I was thinking like I was going to add, the computer taking I could make the computer, pick random spot between, 0 and 2 or inclusive, and then check if you have a spot there already, or X on there already, and if it is one there, it keeps going randomly guessing things, but it'd be weird. I mean, that's like some people you play Tic Tac Toe with are kind of like that as a strategy. But I was going to try to add something that like tries to win, like so it would search all the way down each row and each column to try to see if the player had more than 2, or had 2, I should say, more than 1 X, and then do things to block it, or all this sort of stuff. But you can tell that if I'm going at a pace like this, that's not going to happen in a half hour. Although I am interested in maybe finishing this off, whether I do that in a separate video or just finish it off on my own. I don't need to make you listen to me thinking out loud, but I'm thinking I might, don't hold me to this, but I might actually just try doing the next step of this with another upcoming video or something, whether I upload that or not. But I'm having so much fun. This is so fun. Sorry for being a weird person, I guess. Okay, got to get that X in there. So I've got the coordinates now, and I'd like to reference the game board. And for one thing, I don't know whether the board is even visible to this function. I mean, this is a member of the same structure that's here, so it hopefully can see it. There should be able to be a self.board thing. Okay. And self.board is 3 rows. So I can do self.board. I should be able to just do this. Okay, so that's referencing the row, and then I think I can do an inner selector, or whatever you want to call that there, but I'm not entirely sure. Why doesn't it like that anyway? Okay. What I think is happening here is that this is going to be selecting the board's the row. I'm going to do -1 in here, even though I'd like to have something a little more clean than that. But okay, so there's that. I'm going to just do this right. Okay, it does like it. Okay, so -1. I'm hoping that it just lets me do this, but we'll find out in a second if I have to like format it as a string or something. Why can't you just... Oh, that's interesting. What? Because they're strings. I see. How about that? Oh, it's even worse now. Because I need to convert. Is it that easy? I don't remember how you're supposed to do this stuff. It wants me to cast through a raw pointer first. What does that even mean? I'm going to ask GitHub Copilot about that. Okay. I'm kind of not fully reading that, and yeah, of course that didn't work. What about... Here's something where I just would need to know what I'm doing a little bit more. And now I'm just like throwing things in there and seeing what happens. Of course that didn't fix it. So close. What if I... See, the issue here is that I don't understand enough about how to deal with types in Rust yet, because there's a little bit of more stuff going on than just being able to convert them. Can I do something like that? Absolutely not. Can I do something like this? I'm going to use U32 because why not? It hates it. What does it say about that? It seems like I should be able to just do parse. At least I thought I could until I saw this happen. Because this is returning what? A result. I have to do matching. There's this thing, I want to write this by memory. Okay. It's not returning an actual value, it's doing this instead. So there's this is like those options you get in Rust where there's either a sum or a none where it checks for null values. Here's something I haven't seen before where it has an OK or an error type. So it's doing something like this. And then there's an error type, which is there's this underscore that can represent more than one type. I'm not quite sure what that is called yet. And if something's wrong with that, you can I'm just going to make it return. Or am I? What's wrong with this? It wants one of those, okay. Wow, there's so much work going into this. I don't even know how much I'm over the time here, but I'm going to duplicate that into the column thing. That's even worse now. What? Can't be indexed by U32. It said it likes U size. Wait, so why? That's even more. It's fine with that for some reason, but it doesn't like that. Type vector string cannot be indexed by U32. The trait that is implemented for U32 is required by something. It wants me to use a U size here, but it didn't mind that I used a U32 in the other thing. I'd love to know more about that. Oh, now it has a problem with it. Yeah, it wants U size on both of these. And it hates this because of what? So I can use toString. It's funny, so that's really not a string, but apparently it has a toString on it. Now it's like that. What's going on here? Now I needed to give that mutability. Okay, I think after all this, I might actually have something that'll do that. Oh, right. I'm maybe going to do this then. Interesting. Okay, so what I'm thinking about here is I'd like to make so that if the player hits the Q key or something like that, they can break this infinite loop here. That's interesting. Do you know what infinite loops with loop? I've never seen this before either. I'd like to know more about that too. I'm going to just run it and see what happens. Oh my, put an X there. Oh, I feel great about this. I'm about to win at Tic Tac Toe, everybody. There. I'm going to win. Win there. And I'm going to win there. I feel so much better now. Oh, okay, there's another win. 2, 2, and 2. I don't think I've ever played such a great game. I just completely dominated the board. But I can't quit. Can I do... I can at least do that. Okay, so I'm feeling good with doing that. I'm going to stop this very long video. I'm so glad that everybody who's watched this stayed with me to the end, if you did. And if you didn't, I do not blame you. Maybe next time I do one of these, I'll be just slightly better and slightly faster at doing this stuff. But today, I just had the most fun I've ever had doing this whole my... Okay, I'm going to just stop now. Thanks for watching.